morning from the Home Center. This is October 4th Sunday service, and our opening prayer from the Home Center ministerial team, Minister of Prayer Joe Pinecoffer, follows. On this spiritually charged Sunday morning, pause and listen to the words from Reverend Madge and picture in your own mind, in your own way, and remember why you are living at this time. This is for your spiritual unfoldment and growth. We're here to heal Mother Earth and to heal ourselves and heal our spiritual empowerment. The healing of humanity is very important at this time. Use these words and these ideas and carry them in your hearts to be remembered throughout the coming week. Now, sense God's love coming from and through every light worker, family member, friend, acquaintance, every person on earth. By recognizing God's energy and motion, God's love, we have a complete circuit and contact in God's love that connects us in spirit as it is on earth. This is what it feels like to be in peace with the world and ourselves. In God and Christ, love and light, so be it. Amen. And now I turn the podium over to Reverend Madge.
Thank you so much, Dick. I really appreciate that prayer. It's lovely. So I want to talk about today is doing and being, or the three stages of creation, which can be thinking, doing, and being. So this past week I had a wonderful gift. I was able to spend a couple of nights at a friend's Airbnb, and it's over in Sisters, Oregon. It was very lovely. And because of her job, she doesn't live there right now. She lives closer to her work, but it's her home, and that's where she's going to retire when she gets there. But in the meantime, she's renting out her home as an Airbnb, and she offered it to me during the week, because her weekends, of course, are her money-making times. She offered it to me during the week as a personal respite period of time for me. So I was able to take advantage of that and just have the fee for cleaning is the cost to me. So I really am deeply grateful. And then to also make it possible, I had another friend who offered to help in covering some of the costs for Joe's respite care, or overnight care, I should say. And it made it possible for me to go and have this respite time for me. And I'm so grateful for all the ways in which I'm supported to make these kinds of events possible. So I took my mother with me, and it was a really special time. It was a very sweet time for the two of us to be together, and she really appreciated it. And at the end of it, I said, "Well, you ready to go home?" And she said, "No, not really." So told me that she really let down, had a good time, and really enjoyed herself. We arrived late afternoon on Tuesday, and then we left late morning on Thursday. So we had Wednesday to kick around and take a nap and explore the world of tarot cards. I took a bag full of tarot cards with me, and I did some drumming down by the pond. So it was a very restorative time for me. This place is probably close to 5 acres of green park-like setting. She has sprinklers that go off every day, gardener that comes probably every week and takes care of the place. So it was very much like a park. And my friend told me, she says, "Madge, you've got to sit out on the porch." She said, "My family's favorite thing to do is to sit on the porch with a glass of wine." Well, after I got there and I saw this porch that's the length of the house, a nice big porch, the length of the house, I quickly understood what she was talking about and why she encouraged that. And she has like 3 and maybe 4 different settings of places to sit on this porch. But of course, the favorite is the one end that has the big overstuffed chairs and a great big ottoman. And so it's very comfortable, very relaxing. And then you look out from this space into this park-like setting with this pond and these, juniper trees and pine trees all over. And it's just a place where time disappears. And that's the first thing I noticed is I stepped into a timeless place. So as I was sitting there in the afternoon, I was feeling into living like this and feeling into the energy of my friend who owns the place, and I saw it and felt the principles of what Dr. Joe Dispenza was teaching at the conferences that I attended to in 2012. I thought that, there's some things that are timeless and some principles that will transfer at any time in life. And I saw these principles in action, and I saw the differences between thinking, doing, and being in your experience in life. That was the big thing that he was teaching at that time. He teaches that he teaches it from the perspective of three brains. There's the thinking brain, the doing brain, and the being brain. I like to call it the three levels or stages of experiencing life. For me, that's an easier transferable understanding, is to think of it as in stages or levels. So in this moment of sitting on this porch and relaxing and drinking a good cup of coffee, I was exploring these three stages and how we experience our life. And I could see that my friend had achieved the state of being. She was being abundant. She was being prosperous. And I know that deep down inside, because her and I connect on a vibrational level, we don't talk about metaphysics, but we connect on a vibrational level that tells me she lives metaphysics and she lives the principles of them. And I can tell just by her soul that she's a very wise soul, she's very smart, and she's prosperous. And she's beyond the need to buy books to know how to be prosperous. She doesn't think about things like The Secret. She doesn't think about the principles of attracting prosperity and abundance. Now, in all honesty, I don't know what her roots are, but I'm guessing that she wasn't raised in as good of an environment as she's created for herself. So I was feeling into how she was being, and also her former business partner, who is a woman that's also a friend of mine. Those two women have very similar energy frequencies. They're both old souls. They both are being their prosperous selves, and they don't have to talk about it. So both of these ladies are very noble, they're very wise, and they emanate this wisdom from the inside out because they're being it. So neither of them are reaching for prosperity. Neither one of them are trying to find it outside themselves, because they're being prosperous from the inside out. And I really saw the principle and felt the principle of that as I was sitting on the porch. And they're not looking out there for the knowledge. They're not looking out there for the principles of how to change their life. And we might try different, in our worlds, we might try different affirmations. We might try applying different principles of what we're learning. But for them, they already know it. And so they're being it. So all of this is very good on either side of doing, thinking, or being, because as we're doing exercises that are affirmations, as we're obtaining books on these things, we're teaching our mind to create a new story. If we're creating new synaptic connections in our brain, then we're going to think differently and create a different reality from that place. And our goal in the end is to come to that place where we're just being our destiny, where we are being our goal, and we don't have to be separate, and we don't experience any separation from it. We've taken the journey from thinking about it and learning about it in our head to doing it with our hands or applying the principles to being it in our hearts and in the expression of who we are. And when we take that journey from being our destiny and being our goal, it is fully embodied in the cells of our mind, in the cells of our spirit, and in the cells of our mind, body, and spirit. Say it that way. It's fully embodied in our mind, our body, and our spirit. And it's who we are from the inside out. We're not reaching for it out here. It's not separate from us. It's who we are from the inside out. Another way to see it as a personal evolution, when we're in the thinking stage, we buy books on the topic, we attend workshops, we take classes to learn about it. And we work to identify our thoughts and our stories that are creating the reality that we don't want. So that's what we're striving for. We're thinking about it, we're working towards a better world. And then as we learn from our books and learn from our peers and learn from our classes, we learn where our blocks and our barriers are to what we want. And as we are doing this, we learn also then what our internal dialogue is, what our self-talk is, what stories do we have that we're holding on to that are true. And now we realize that we're living by those stories, we're living by those beliefs, and that's what's creating the reality that we don't want to have. And we're creating an ideal of what we do want to have. An example of this story or this belief that we might have that shapes someone's world, and something that creates a belief within them that's true, is they may be carrying a story that says, my teachers told me I was stupid. So now that is a belief that they're living by, and it creates for this person a world of limitations because it's true for them because somebody told them somewhere along the line, so now they're living by that. Now it's a barrier, they're living a life of limitations. Another one that often shapes a person's world is where someone might say to them, well, that's not possible. And if that is said to them at the right age, at the right timing, in the right emotional state, that information, it's not possible, becomes very real for them. It sinks into their psyche, it sinks into how they believe in themselves or what they think about themselves. And it becomes a belief that is so true for them that they live by that limitation and they can't find their way to possibility. So as these stories get discovered in our thinking stages and in our doing stages, we come to that next step of the evolution where we move into the doing. So the discoveries in the thinking, and then we move into the doing. We create affirmations, we do meditations, we change our thinking, we work at, anyway, changing our deeply seated beliefs. And that's not easy. It's not an easy journey. We seek out healing treatments. We look and talk to other people that can help us discover and reframe perhaps the stories that have been so true for us that have created limitations. We go to counseling. We do all kinds of things in our doing stage as we're creating an ideal of what our being state might be like. And in some senses, it looks like a horse that's been in a corral for all of its life, and now the gate is open, because this horse has been living in a limited existence within its limitations. Now the gate's open, and we can experience this sometimes when we've fully released a story or a belief that has held us back or removed a barrier. The gate is open, and the pasture is green as far as we can see it. And it's quite scary at first, but it's exciting at the same time. And yet we have no idea where to start because the world of possibility is now before us, and it's so vast that it can be very daunting. And so we wind up running all over the place, discovering this, sampling that, doing this, doing that, because now we're experiencing a world of possibilities that wasn't there and wasn't true for us before. Then at some point, our goal is to be in the being stage. This stage is where we've changed our thinking, where we've changed our stories, we've changed our beliefs. We're no longer the victim. We're no longer broken. We're no longer living by the limitations that we had in our world prior to that. And also what's interesting to me in this stage of being is when we're being our destiny, being our goal, we don't even tell the stories of our limitations. We don't even tell the stories that victimized us before, because those stories no longer exist in that in that destiny, in that reality. Those stories don't even exist there. The vibrational frequency has been transformed, transmuted, released, and they no longer exist for us. And that's a beautiful place to be. That's our most ideal state, where we're not going back to the energetic frequency of that story, because it doesn't even exist for us. What I found sometimes is when people really completely transform the limitations and the barriers that were once real for them, they can hardly remember it. I might remember it because they told it to me and it was quite traumatic, and boy, it made an imprint in my memory of a conversation with them. And then at some later time, I'll come back to them and say, hey, you know that experience you had? And they go, what? And they barely can remember it. And I think, oh my gosh, it's gone for them. And that's beautiful. I don't need to be bringing it back to their mind. We can just let it go, let it be a part of that past. Because it has, in that transformation, when it's transformed, then we're living from our wisdom. We might remember the experience, but it has no electrical charge to it. If we think about our emotions are electrical signals through our nervous system. So our beliefs and our stories are charged with a particular frequency or currency of electricity. And then we start living by that electric impulse. So when we have completely transformed an old story, an old belief, barriers, limitations, they no longer have an electrical charge, and they no longer exist in our field somewhere. These stories and beliefs, they exist not only in our body, but in our field. And that's where we create our reality from, on all levels. And they are only wisdom. They're just something that has information in it that becomes wisdom when we can get to that place of being. And they have no influence in shaping our life. And that's our ultimate goal, how we can be with that. I heard a statement a long time ago that I often go back to as a point of wisdom. They use the example of racism. We know that racism exists because we talk about it. And it's a focal point for and especially right now, for everything that we're doing, it is a focal point. If racism really didn't exist, we wouldn't talk about it, and it would never even come to our mind, because it wouldn't even exist in our conversation, in our field, in how we do things. Everything would be equal and even. So as long as we're talking about it, we know it's still a live issue. And I thought, wow, I've used that for a gauge in my own personal experience. As long as I'm talking about something, I know it's a live issue. It still has an electrical charge to it. It's still shaping and creating my reality that I'm living by. So my goal is to get to a place with my own personal stories and beliefs where they are so non-existent that I don't even talk about it. Now that's different than sweeping it under the rug. You sweep it under the rug, it still has electrical charge, and it will still continue to shock you. It will still be there, still alive, and it will still have influence in your reality. That's different than completely discharging, completely transforming, and completely taking every ounce of electrical charge out of it. So to circle back to my stay at my friend's Airbnb and feeling into her energy and the experience of the outcome of how she is demonstrating life was very enriching to me. And she so generously shares, and I'm so grateful for that. And she does, in her conversations, she and I, we don't talk about metaphysical principles because she's not thinking or doing them, she's being them. And she's just this wise soul, and she's being prosperous because that's who she is without conflict. And that's who she's being from the inside out. And she's in the flow of the universe, and she's doing her part when Spirit whispers. So I'd like to take just a few moments and do a little meditation in this regard and see if we can feel the feelings of thinking, doing, and being. So take a nice deep breath And get yourself comfortable and close your eyes and take yourself into the center of your being, perhaps in your solar plexus area, in the middle of your torso. Take your awareness into that area and feel the feelings of what it is that might be alive in there for you. Perhaps in this area it might have a color, it might have a sound, it might have a vibrational frequency. And just sit with it for a moment and see if you can connect with an old belief or something that is a limitation in your life, something that's influencing your existence today that you no longer want to have. You don't want that to be true for you anymore. And so now with that particular thought or issue or way of being, think about what information do you have or information that you can seek. Perhaps it's a book on your bookshelf, something that just crossed your path. Spirit works in beautiful ways in this way. They bring you what you were ready for. So maybe you're ready to address this and some information came your way that you can start thinking about and you can start applying it and you can think about, what does this mean? How do I use this? How do I make this real for me? And then as you journey with that information, now we can see ourselves as ready to start applying it. We can be starting to do these things. We can start catching ourselves when we think about our story and start reframing that story. Part of our doing is to create a new story. And now we want to bridge the gap between the old story and the new story that we're creating. How is it that you want it to be when you do arrive into that state of being? And start creating a new story. Maybe your exercise is to, when you start thinking that thought that's a limiting thought, that you stop yourself, you catch yourself, no longer letting yourself have those endorphins that come from the old story, that comfort zone that comes from it, and turn your attention to your new story. Start creating new brain waves, new frequencies in your field, new synaptic connections in the gray matter. And as we continue to do this through affirmations, through catching ourselves through our thinking, through changing our posture, changing up our body, now as we get really comfortable in our new story, we can see now that our old story is just fading away. It's becoming less and less strong, less and less real for us, and our world around us is starting to shift. Opportunities start coming. Things start happening for us in little ways. Things that we might be comfortable with start falling away, and that scares us. But we can turn our faith to spirit and know that we're doing our part as things are changing. We may have an empty void for a while, but allow yourself to be confident that you're doing your work. Love yourself for it. Continue to fill yourself with love, hope, and faith that things are going to turn out very well for you. And then as we cross that river of change and we come into our new state of being, all of that is gone and it just falls off of us like a heavy coat, and it just drops off as we come into this new wave of lightness, this new wave of being, this new wave of exempling our goal and living by our destiny that we have created now for ourselves. And we're fully present in it. We're so present in this new goal and this destiny that we no longer even remember what our old stories were. We no longer remember the feelings of victimization because we're so fully present in this moment of being our destiny, being the great spirit that you came here to be, being the prosperous and abundant person that you came here to be, and you're living by your soul's values and allowing that energy to flow through you. And you always will have enough for you, enough to share, and enough to save. And let that be the truth that you move forward in life with, the truth that you live by, and hold fast to that. And when any of the old thoughts start creeping in, as they sometimes may, Just remember your process and come back to the reframing, come back to the will, the power of your will to stay in that light and to stay in that presence of the divine that is now ever part of your creation that you've made for yourself. Let it be fully in love and light, and let it be so. Amen. So thank you so much for being with me today, being with us today, and I hope that you're able to take some of the nuggets from this and apply them and use them and allow them to expand your reality. As we're creating a new world around us every day, let us start with ourselves in creating our own reality with our own destinies in place. And let it be so. Love you guys and look forward to seeing you soon.
Arms around the world, around each other. Arms around the world, sisters and brothers. Arms around the world and we discover. Arms around